No, because I think you have stuff to do after this. 2.
What do I have to do?
Don't you have a birthday party tonight?
Yes.
All right.
That's not so extraordinary.
3. All right. I don't think you have enough time to go to Carowinds.
Do I have enough time to watch videos till then?
Probably.
So a little bit heavier on the exercise science side of things, but as always, it is going to entail the full PAC profile that we use in Autism Fitness, which is physical, adaptive, and cognitive. Physical being the athlete's capability to perform the exercise to the best of their current capability with their strength, motor skills, and stability. Adaptive with their motivation and focus on that particular exercise, on that particular set, and on that particular repetition. And then cognitive, the way the athlete communicates, the way that they interpret information, their motor learning, their kinesthetic awareness, and of course their motor imitation as well, hence the PAC profile. What exercise science, particularly in the realm of strength training, tells us is that intensity is going to be a particular factor in hypertrophic development and strength. Why is this important for our autism and neurodivergent population? And why does it differ for this population in specific and very particular ways that we need to address? So in order to result in a training effect, the stimulus wherein the muscles have to respond by getting bigger, getting stronger, getting denser, getting larger, there needs to be a certain amount of stressor to that muscle. And the way that we create that stressor is, of course, exercise. So in the case of strength training, we are providing our athletes with a variety of different movement patterns that are going to elicit a response from specific muscles. And of course, we have our larger muscle groups, and then we have smaller muscle groups as well. We focus predominantly on compound movements like a squat, an overhead press, a push-up, a row, even a hinge or deadlift, etc., because these are going to be the exercises that most of the time are going to have the single greatest benefit for our athletes, specifically talking about our autism and neurodivergent athletes, because they, number one, tend to have less or more inhibited motor planning. And second is the reality is they just tend to be more sedentary and less conditioned or deconditioned, meaning that the larger muscle groups, the upper back, glutes, hamstrings, quads, chest, shoulders tend to be weaker when compared with neurotypical peers, both because of some of those innate motor inhibition issues, but also because we're largely dealing with a population that does not engage in strength training to a meaningful degree. So we have there a conundrum, and I'm using that term very liberally, but a major issue in which strength training is going to be a factor in quality of life for our athletes, and that's why we are focusing predominantly on strength training as a modality for our athletes, because those are the exercises or the exercise modality that is going to lead towards the greatest benefits from the perspective of activities of daily living, even some cognitive and socio-emotional benefits, and just quality of life overall. The research on this is very, very clear with respect to neurotypical populations. We just need to take that and now apply it to neurodivergent populations. Of course, that's what we're doing with autism fitness programming. So now we get to the stimulus itself. So when we talk about volume, we have sets and repetitions of an exercise. So number of sets is the specific amount of reps that they are doing in a unit of time. So typically somewhere between 8 and 12, even 15 repetitions on average within a set that is aimed at hypertrophy or muscular development. Now here's where it becomes interesting with respect to our autism and neurodivergent athletes. And this is really important, and I know it's technical, But this is what differentiates our programming and actually meaning functional and effective programming versus, oh, let's just get together and move around a bunch because all exercise is just the same, because that is, and I say this emphatically, not true at all. Not all exercises are created equal. A jumping jack is not the same as a squat. Knocking around a beach ball is not the same as a push-up. These and it sounds so obvious, but these are really different things. Strength training, as it implies, requires a certain amount of muscular energy and very specific factors to that. We need a concentric component of that exercise. We need an eccentric component of that exercise. That's the raising and lowering, going up and going down, pushing and pulling, that sort of thing, right? Now let's get to where this factors differently for our autism and neurodivergent population. So with in a typical session with many of our athletes, typically many of our athletes who are diagnosed at level 2 or level 3 autism, they may not, at least initially, have the meaningfulness or the motivation to participate in that program. And when they do, the impetus or the motivation is to do the exercise so that they no longer have to do the exercise, because we have not yet paired the exercise itself, which is a challenging stimulus, with something that is reinforcing or a secondary reinforcer. We're working on that, but in the meantime, in sessions 1, 2, even session 3, that exercise, so that push-up or that squat or even that medicine ball throw, has not been sufficiently paired yet with a reinforcer, so the athlete still finds it novel and oftentimes aversive. So they'll do it, but they'll do it with the explicit reason to not do it anymore, which, by the way, happens in the neurotypical population. So you have people who, oh, I hate to go to the gym and I hate exercise, but I like the results, so I still do it. But we have to build that in for a lot of our athletes. So even if we know that it's going to be helpful and it's going to be eventually life-changing for that athlete, they may not have that in mind just yet. It's not out of ignorance and it's not out of low intelligence at all. It's just in the fact that for many autistic individuals, making those connections between that activity and then the outcome of that activity is going to be a little bit or a lot more difficult than for neurotypical individuals. That's just what it is sometimes. So now we have this conundrum in the science aspect of this, in the exercise science aspect, which is we need the athlete to perform at a certain level where the exercise is challenging enough, physically challenging enough. So we're sectioning off, or for the meantime, we're removing the motivational or the adaptive premise of this, in that the athlete does or does not want to participate. If we move that aside, we have the physiological, where the athlete needs to get to a point in performance where the stimuli, that exercise, is challenging enough that it's going to elicit a training effect, that response where the athlete gets stronger, becomes more stable, the movement pattern becomes better, so that homeostasis is reached. So we get back to baseline. Now the athlete's stronger, so when we give them that 20-pound sandbag to carry, or we have them squat and they're going lower, their legs are strong enough to control that movement on the way down and then push them back up, because that's what we're doing through training. There's no magic to it. It's just repeated effort, and eventually this stimulus gets more challenging because the athlete gets stronger and stronger. But in order to get stronger and stronger, we have to periodically increase the challenge of that exercise. And now we have an individual who maybe in the beginning and even a few sessions in really doesn't want to participate necessarily, or there may be some exercises that are more aversive, oftentimes because they are more challenging either motorically, or they're more challenging because they require the athlete to focus and utilize that strength that is just emerging now. So this is where these different sciences and practices intersect, because in order to have that athlete do something that's more challenging, I need to earn that athlete's trust. This is really important. If I don't have that athlete's trust, they are not going to be a willing and capable participant in doing the 2 or 3 more reps per set that is going to continue to provide growth and development, i.e. strength, for that athlete. Because we can get to a point, not where the athlete plateaus necessarily physically, but where they feel comfortable. So, and this is very common with our autistic and neurodivergent athletes, because there is a sense of familiarity and there's a sense of sameness. And for our athletes who thrive on routine and are highly regimented, it's not just, oh, we're going to follow the same exercise program every time. It's going to be, we do the same amount of sets and the same amount of repetitions using the same weight every time, which is okay in the beginning, because establishing that routine is going to be oftentimes very healthy and certainly a factor in consistency for that athlete. So we don't want to lose it, but then we want to figure out how and when and where we're going to start implementing more challenging aspects of that exercise, even if the athlete is still at a modified variation of that particular exercise. So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of athletes who are squatting to the same level box, and it's going to take 5, 6, 10 sessions before we can lower that box, because the athlete is still developing not only the motor pattern, but the strength to be able to lower themselves over 2 or 3 seconds and then stand back up without internally rotating their hips, without folding their upper back. So maintaining that stability throughout 8 or 10 or even 12 repetitions is going to be a big thing. That's the athlete moving towards what we call in Autism Fitness standard performance, where they can do it independently for 3 sets of, 8 to 10 repetitions consistently. Along the way, we also have these adaptive factors, the motivation. You often have an athlete who, because they've done 3 sets of 8 repetitions, they always want it as 3 sets of 8 repetitions. So we have to have this exchange. And oftentimes it's a planning conversation. In next time, in the next session, we're going to do 9, or you're going to do 9, because I like to differentiate between we and you. Like, we are going to throw the medicine ball, but you are going to do squats. So you are going to do 9 repetitions next session, so the athlete has an expectation of what's going to happen next time, because that athlete that really thrives on sameness, that athlete who has a tendency to be really rigid and regimented about what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, what order it goes in, and how many they do, might initially have a problem, because it might be aversive, to change. It's not even about the exercise being more challenging necessarily, as we do it all at the same time every time, but now we're doing something different. Even if that something different is really the same, it's just an extra repetition or 2, or it's going up in weight. So this is something that we really need to be considerate of for the athlete. Now, I will say that I've had plenty of athletes who are totally cool with going up in weight as long as that is made clear to them. And it's not just, oh, here, by the way, we're going up, 4 pounds, or we're going up 5 pounds, or we're going up 10 pounds. So I will always ask the athlete, is it cool with you if I add this? Or on the next set, how would you like to try? It's athlete dependent also, because when you have that highly rigid athlete, you have to take into account they may need some consideration time before I start giving them more, even if it's, again, 2 or 3 more repetitions in the set, or if it's a different color dumbbell or a different size dumbbell, or if it's squatting to a lower box, any of that can throw an athlete off. There are some who are going to be totally cool. Yeah, let's go. There are some athletes who are going to be hesitant, and there are some athletes for at least the first couple times that you offer that option are going to be a hard no. But here's the thing. We can't stay at the same level of performance and expect new results, the same way we can't with any other skill set. So with exercise and strength training in particular, where we are now, is on a continuum. So it's on a gradient scale. And that is the whole premise of linear periodization, which is a big deal concept in strength and fitness. Linear, as in there's a line, periodization, as in over the course of time, something changes, often increasing in volume and intensity. It doesn't mean that every single session our goal is to do 1 more rep, 5 more pounds, because we're going to reach a point where we plateau with every exercise. But in the vast majority of cases with our autism and neurodivergent athletes, because they're starting at the level that they're starting at, we don't need to worry at all about what happens when this athlete plateaus. What we really need to be concerned with is how do we get this athlete to the point where they do have sufficient enough motor control, stability, and strength that they can do this exercise independently, so that our problem now is increasing the weight and finding the point at which the athlete is going to plateau, which I can tell you from over 20 years of experience is going to take a long time. So if you really take fitness programming for the autism and neurodivergent population seriously, then you also need to understand a good amount, and good amount is relative, of the science behind the exercise side of things, and not just add in random exercises and expect some type of result. In the beginning, anything is probably going to make a difference, because with exercise, if you have someone who is completely untrained or completely detrained and you add whatever, you could add a stationary bike, they're going to get a little bit more fit because it's more than they were doing before, but it's certainly not optimal, and it's certainly not going to build strength in the way that's going to be conducive or carry over into everyday skills. One of the main issues here is the fact that we need more exercise science in the autism and neurodivergent world, so that we can take best practices from one science and bring it to another. And then we have this the science of positive behavior support and communication with our coaching and cueing, and we can take this wonderful, valid blend of practices and put them together. And by the way, that's what we do in our autism fitness curriculum. So if you're interested in becoming a pro, go to autismfitness.com. But I'm very curious how this has landed for you, how this might influence the way that you think about fitness programming for the autism and neurodivergent population. And just consider that there is a wealth of knowledge and practice and valid science behind exercise. It just hasn't completely made its way into the neurodivergent world, which is why we still see a lot of let's all sit in a circle and throw a ball around and call that exercise. Because if you said to a neurotypical peer, hey, to get fit, maybe you want to sit in a circle and throw a ball around, they'd probably give you a very depreciating look, and rightfully so. So we want to hold a measure of expectation and accountability, and using the best practices that we have to influence and guide how we're going to implement fitness programming for the neurodivergent population. Again, specifically strength training, because it is by far the modality that is going to bring the most benefit to our neurodivergent population. I'd love to know what you think. Leave comments below. If you have a question about programming, leave that down there also. I love answering this stuff. I'm happy to sit here and yap about this, but what I really like is the interaction. But I don't know what you want to know, so let me know. I'm Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement. Thank you very much for watching.